Hello, beautiful soul family. Britt Cannon here, host of the Walk On podcast, the podcast where I try to demystify spirituality, personal growth and healing, and whatever else I feel like talking about. This week's episode is Let's Talk About Sex, Baby. Let's talk about you and me. And it's just about sex positivity and how at the root of it, that is accepting and allowing everyone the autonomy of embodying their sexuality in whatever way feels right to them. Allowing ourselves to embody our sexuality in the way that feels right to us, without guilt, without shame, without expectations from society, from our family, from our partners and friends even. And this isn't just in the case of like orientation as far as attraction. This is the case as in levels of desire, right? Relationships to monogamy, kink and fetish stuff. Like it's just big. And I get into how as we are created by the universe, we are physical manifestations of the universe in all of its richness and vastness and cosmic beauty. And so we should allow ourselves to be ever expanding the way that they are. And to not limit ourselves with expectations of stagnancy, whether it be considering a relationship a failure if it doesn't last forever, or being afraid to change our minds about who we are in the world, what we believe, where we are going and what we're capable of doing. And what we do to ourselves, we do to each other. So if we can unpack that for ourselves, then we will be more accepting and open-minded to others. As with all of these videos that are on my Walk On podcast playlist, these are just short, abridged versions of the hour-long podcast that happens every week, except for when I'm taking a break. And so if you like what you see and hear here, you can click the link down below to listen to the full hour-long episode. And if you'd like a transcript, just comment down below and I can send you one. So sexuality to me has been an interesting journey because I grew up in the Bible Belt. I didn't grow up in a necessarily Christian environment, but it was all around. Growing up in the American South is just a mind fuck as far as morality. And so I grew up with this very shameful relationship with my own sexuality, sexual curiosity, desire, pleasure, but at the same time, I found myself insatiably curious about experience, and I was what I would call timid, responsible, afraid, but also open, and so this led to a lot of grappling with the morality of the people around me, as to what was acceptable, and what would frankly send me to hell or not. So even with the early days of experimenting with masturbation, I have this bit in the podcast where I talk about how I used to pray for forgiveness after I would come. I'd make myself come and have a great time doing it, and then as soon as it was over, I'd be oh my God, please forgive me. If I'm not supposed to be doing that, please make me stop. I can't make myself stop. It feels too good. Can you please make me stop? I'm sorry, I'm being bad, and it's just, that's really harmful. A lot of the puritanical beliefs that I was raised with, because being, in a family with the generational trauma of early accidental pregnancy, teen pregnancy and stuff like that, there was a lot of fear put on me, and paranoia put on me. And also if you grow up as a girl in a narcissistic family with a narcissistic maternal figure, they have a really hard time with the sexual liberation and like that kind of like pubescent blossoming as far as being in relationships, experimenting with sexuality, you know, getting physical with people in the world. It freaks all parents out, I think, for some reason. I think it's just because our society is puritanical. Obviously, there is worry attached to, like, you hope your kid's being responsible, you hope they're being smart, you hope they're with someone who respects them. But I think this, like, obsession with holding on to our kids' virginity as the nonsense, patriarchal fucking construct that it is, I think it really does more harm than good. It creates shame, it creates trauma, it creates hiding and lying and distance in a relationship, when for any relationship to continue growing and being nurtured and getting deeper, communication is key. So if you're making the environment so unsafe for your child that they can't grow in like developmentally appropriate ways, where they can't individuate from you, especially in this in the very like sort of universally important way of developing relationships, whether it's friends or otherwise, outside of the family unit, then, you know, that relationship is going to be distant and probably stay distant. So it's important to unpack our beliefs about sexuality and morality, and also pleasure. The podcast episode is a lot about pleasure and how, like, you know, in our like white supremacist, capitalist, cis, heteropatriarchal society, system, program, pleasure is seen as something that's bad, you know? Well, first of all, it's like pleasure, being happy, being joyful, being content, being fulfilled, all of that stuff lives in opposition to the white supremacist, capitalist, cis, heteropatriarchy, because if we're happy, we don't need to earn happiness, right? If we're satisfied, we don't need to earn satisfaction. And especially for people who are perceived as women, or who were attempted to be socialized as women, there's also this conjunction of like diet culture and beauty standards. Actually, everyone suffers from this, but I feel like the denial of pleasure in the female experience is like an inherent part of our oppression. You know, you're never supposed to be hungry. You're supposed to be thin effortlessly. You know, you're not even supposed to want the cookie. You're not even supposed to want the orgasm. You're not supposed to degrade yourself. Why is someone going to buy the cow if they can get the milk for free? Leave something to the imagination. It's just like gross. It's gross. It's oppressive. It's judgmental. It's like this weird moral superiority. And as someone who's like been slutty, been sexual, been just nebulously queer, who's done the non-monogamy thing very openly and honestly, you know, with people who weren't involved in it. Like, I came out to my family, you know, just like, doesn't occur to me really to be shameful once I unpack that shame. I just refuse to do it. I just refuse to feel that. But even through, you know, with friends of mine that I had for a long time, people that I loved and respected, just turning on me like that when they found out that I was doing sex work, or that when I speak positively about sex workers and sex worker rights, there's just this moral superiority that I just find completely unacceptable, and really, like, if you're coming at it from a Christian place, really out of alignment with Jesus's values. But anyway, pleasure is your divine right. Pleasure is beautiful. Pleasure is glorious. Pleasure is freedom. Pleasure is poetry. Pleasure is okay. You know, it's good to feel good. That being said, if your pleasure doesn't come, you know, like, consent is huge, right? Consent is the bottom line of, like, decency. You should be able to talk about your wants and needs. You should be able to say no if you don't feel like it. There's pleasure in that too. If you're not a sexual person, if you're an asexual person, if you're not a romantic person or someone who has romantic feelings, if you're asexual, if you're aromantic, if you're demisexual, you know, if you're all these categories of spectrum of sexual desire or lack thereof. The pleasure comes from expressing that joyfully. And I know that's really tough because you're so erased. Society is just it's really weird how we're puritanical and obsessed with sex. Actually, I guess that isn't that weird because, that makes sense, right? If something's, off limits, you become obsessed with it. And this gross dichotomy of, the advertising companies can do it, sex sells, blah, blah, blah. But if you own your own sexual autonomy and liberation, then yikes, you're disgusting, right? You're shameful, you're sinful. Keep away from my children. They're slutty stripper heels, you know what I mean? It's just ugh, yikes. And that's another thing, when you're free, when you're expressing yourself freely, you sometimes trigger other people's shame, and then they project that on you. And so becoming sexually liberated, whether that means, I know that we have one idea in our head of what that means, and it means free love, man, ride the universal consciousness, but sexual liberation to me, all liberation, is really rooted in just being who you are, without shame, without expectations, without the programming of the white supremacist, capitalist, heteropatriarchy. It's being joyful, it's being vulnerable, it's being honest about your struggles. I don't normally have my microphone in the frame, but my configuration is different every time, and so I keep whacking it. It's just understanding that each person is a uniquely expressed facet of the universe, and that is as it should be. That is beautiful. That is something to be celebrated. That is something to be honored. That is something to be respected. And that's it, that's just fucking it. And so no one is weird if they don't feel sexual desire. No one is a bad person if they can't find it within themselves to be committed to one person and one person only. There is no wrong way to do it other than not respecting other people's consent and ways of being. That's the only wrong way to do it. And consent means, consent with everything. Just making sure that the people that you love and you connect with are on the same page as you, making sure you're being upfront about everything. Consent is boundaries, right? We talk so much about boundaries on this show. And just in the world in general, I feel like this is the first time, the phrase and concept of boundaries has been memeified, right? It's everywhere. And that's because it's so important and so crucial. And so I ask you, as you move through the world this week and forward, to not deny yourself the divine right of your own pleasure, to engage with the world openly, curiously, listen to other people's experiences who are different than yours, without that ego mind of judgment, without needing to be better than, or more superior, or superior to, or more holy than, or have more self-control or discipline. Just put all that away and just meet people as they are, as individuals. Try to keep an open dialogue and communication with everyone. Try to just be love and receive the love that comes back to you. If you get to know yourself, right? Get to know what you like, spend some time with yourself in your own body, connect with nature. All of these are sensual delights, right? Eat joyfully, move joyfully, rest joyfully. Your pleasure is a divine right. And I guess that is really the heart of the episode. I hope you listen. I hope you like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And send the episode to someone who you think might need it or resonate with it if you're so inclined. If you'd like to donate, that information is down below. That keeps me making content like this. And being of service, which is really my favorite thing on this planet, is helping and just presenting my extraterrestrial way of seeing the world and experiencing the world. Tell me what you think. You can comment down below. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for receiving my messages. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.